I'll tell you the secret to have a bug fixed and find a way to reproduce it. Because we're all humans, right? And at the end of the day, we all want to go home. And the best way to go home as a programmer is try to reproduce a bug, can't reproduce it, and say, ah, doesn't work, works on my machine, and then go home.
Welcome back!
Hello!
I'm now joined by Matthew, our tech lead, and I thought we'll start off by you telling me a little bit about what you do actually as a tech lead.
Yeah, I tech the lead, or I lead the tech. It's a bit, sometimes a bit confusing. As tech lead, I'm supervising the programmer team basically, so I look after the programmers and the general tech content of the game. So you know, if you want to blame performance, it's usually at the end of the day it's on me. So I'm the guy you blame for you think the game being too slow and things like that.
Yeah, we're actually gonna start by taking a look a little bit about performance improvement.
Actually, yes. You may have seen the in-game profiler. That makes some interesting, cool graph happening. So if I do this, you will see a bunch of stuff of how fast the game is going. So you can see, for example, how many ticks you do. Like on average, like it's about 23 milliseconds to get like an early tick going, and you can see your FPSs. So that's what I wanted to show you to get a rough idea of how it is right now. So it's not too bad actually. You can do like about 34 hours per second. That's pretty good. Like I think we're not too bad on the release. What was really bad though was the FPSs. There's some problem, and especially on lower end GPUs. I noticed that that a bunch of things were a bit slow, and when you see the red popping up at the bottom, like here for example, it's basically we're trying to do extra rendering, and that kind of balloons itself. Because you know when the game is a bit too slow to calculate, like update the hour, it will try to just drop some frame in the middle to smooth things up, which can end up just feeding itself.
Yeah.
So we're trying to avoid that as much as we can. So you can see as pause we had like I think we can reach 60 FPS post. That should be, come on. Whew. Close, but we do it. We have 60 FPS post. Okay, cool. Now if we unpause that, you see we went down to 10. Now we're stuck at 25 maybe. That's what we get on release. So just we can actually what I can do on the fly just to see I'm not cheating. I'm gonna make a screenshot real quick of this because then we can have some
power of the snipping tool.
Exactly. I use this thing way too much. Microsoft has replaced it on Windows 11. I hate them so much because now I have to use another thing. But we'll keep it as a reference image, and then we'll go here and start the secret beta. So let's take the same style, and let's still play as Germany. Hopla! And let's restart this thing, see how fast it goes. And you'll see that even on speed 5 now we have about 55 FPS. And if I have the thing here to compare, we had 25. Okay, so we're basically almost twice as fast on the UI side. It used to be about, yeah, the render time is quite a bit better right now. Can I explain more about my role at Paradox with Hoi 4? Yeah, sure. As I mentioned before, I'm the tech guy. So, well, I'm one of the tech guys. I supervise the programming team, right? So I'm responsible for training the programmers and helping out from time to time when there is like a specific tech issues that needs to be solved. On day-to-day basis, I mostly let the programmers write the features. I help out when I have time, but realistically, I don't really have that much. So I look at like anything else that needs to be done on the side. So like I did the DirectX 11 migration, for example, back in the day, and I try to keep an eye on performance, out of syncs, and things like that. Game performance on Windows 69, yeah.
I don't think that's the thing.
Ever consider helping out modders? We actually help modders.
Yeah.
If you're part of the beta program, which I think a bunch of modders are, we have a channel there, and they usually ask us if we have like specific, like they can book bug reports for us. And I know, especially like, I can't remember which mod. I think I can't remember if Kaiserreich is there. I know Equestria at War is there. I think a couple other mods are in the beta, and they ping us when we have like a specific.
Yeah, we have smaller programs to help out modders. There's closed beta program to be sometimes run. Of course, we talk to them on the forums, on the modding area, and in the official Discord. There's a modding place where I've seen a few devs actually chime in when people start modding.
If you want help with modding, though, I think maybe the tech people are maybe not the best. We can help out, but a lot of the actual modding is just scripting, and that we're not actually the best people at Paradox for that. It's going to be our content designers. So so people like I mean, you've probably met some of them when in the previous stream. I can't remember who showed up, but yeah, that's the content designer. Are usually
we had Amy
able
here
to,
last week. She's one of the content designers.
Who was that?
Amy.
Oh yeah, Amy, yeah, one of them actually. They can probably help out and give you some
as myself actually attempted to mod during the summer, during the little streams, Hot Coat Summer with my colleague Alex. I understand the pain of modding, and we failed successfully.
It is not trivial. It is not trivial, and I understand that it is easier for our content designer because we're sitting right next to them. So every time they have a weird error message, they can ask us. We have made some efforts over the years to every time they get a bad error message, instead of just fixing the bug for them, we actually try to improve the error message in a way that, for example, tells you like what file and what line is screaming at you. Because I know and I understand that when the error docs pops at the bottom right. And it tells you like assert something, you're like, cool, what did I do wrong? Like, how do I fix it? It's a big topic on itself. We lost Peter to talk about UX, right? Yeah, clear error message, exactly, that's the thing, right? Like, we talked about UX before with Peter and how it's really important to communicate things to the player. We have the same thing. How do we communicate to modders or content designer that they did something wrong? It takes a lot of time. And yes, honestly, we'll focus, if we have to make a choice, we'll make sure that the feature is there rather than the best error message possible for modders. But we try as much as we can to make it readable. If anything, because it also helps our content designers.
Especially from question from maybe I've had so many errors and typed out my error message. Who really reads them? Do you know regarding anything regarding that? Because I've gotten a lot of questions previously on who reads our little errors that appear in the game.
We should.
Yeah.
We should, like, as the tech lead, one of the main thing I make sure of is that if you start HOI, like on the beta or whatever, you don't get any error message. The game will give you some error message if you play for hours. We try to reduce them. Some of them have been there for like before my time, so we just assume that they're probably not that important. We have cleaned up some of them over time, but there are still some. But as a modder, normally speaking, what I would expect is if you start the game with your mod and just go to the main menu, you should not get any error message. I understand that some of you are using features like script features in ways that were not intended, and that's why you get error message. They might work, they might not work, and you're testing the limits, I would just say. If it screams an error message, it might still work, but you're testing the limits of the system. It might just be chance.
Yeah, there's a lot of voodoo sometimes to modding.
Yes.
I've seen mods that try to actually have new UIs where they have magic to use, which is
the Spanish Civil War mechanic only integrated into Spain? As far as I know, it isn't. I think it's been, I mean, someone scripted like heavily for Spain, but I don't think someone would stop you for heavily scripting it for another country. As far as I know, there's like in the game there is no code mention of any of that. Like that, there is no mention of any like game tag, for example, in code. Like the game doesn't, like the code part of the game doesn't know about Spain or Germany, and that's why if you put another mod and instead you have ponies fighting or whatever, it still works, and it doesn't care. It doesn't see the difference. It's these countries, but what they are is completely non-important for us. There is nothing in the game that says like if Germany gets something. So for example, if you think that you get some different code behavior because another country exists, this is not happening. Like it has to be scripted in some way.
Yeah, actually I want to talk a little bit about optimization and how you would say is the best ways to optimize the game for, you know, little older computers and lower end GPUs.
So I think what I've done with the frames will help, because the problem we have with UI rendering actually is those map icons. Like you can see them on the map, like the small. We call them the map icons. You know, you can see them every time you do something. So that those small like icons for units. You see them also with boats. If you start deciding to build something here, you'll see like all those things. So the issue was they're all on the map all the time. They're just not visible. You can't see them because you're not in the right map mode, right? And the problem is that took a lot of CPU time to decide that, oh, actually they're there, but they don't matter. Yeah. So what I did was we did some optimization to make sure that if you're not in the right map mode, your CPU will spend way less time trying to figure out if they should be occluded or not.
What's this, Matthew? What's the secret to winning in Hoi 4?
Okay, so I'll give you the secret. The secret is you start the game and you type Annex USA, and usually you're better off. Does that help?
I believe that is indeed the secret way to winning.
Okay. You can also just, if that doesn't work enough, you can also annex the Soviet Union.
Yeah, that should help a little bit.
And then you're good. Like, you know, I don't know. I have what. I think it needs to update. I don't think I have. Yeah, I'm getting some factories.
Some factories.
I might need some manpower for my garrisons, but you know, it's usually you're in a better way. I'm just saying, like, you're in a better spot. Like, even if Luxembourg, if you start and you annex the US, you're in a better spot.
Yeah.
Fix multiplayer hot join crash, right? Which I don't know about any multiplayer hot join crash. If you have a bug, please report it on the bug forums.
Yeah.
We have a bug forum.
Yes, we do. So if you have any bugs, please go into the bug forum. I believe that we posted in the top on how we would like you to report it, so for us to most easily take a look at it.
Yes.
And it helps a lot if you do report them in detail.
Because I'll tell you the secret to have a bug fixed and find a way to reproduce it. Because we're all humans, right? And at the end of the day, we all want to go home. And the best way to go home as a programmer is try to reproduce a bug, can't reproduce it, and say, doesn't work, works on my machine, and then go home. Yeah. And that's just the thing, right? If we can't reproduce it, it's gonna be way harder for us. We're gonna have to just roll dice, hoping that it happens again to be able to figure out what's going wrong.
Can the performance profiler window you were shown before be enabled on Retail Hoi 4?
Yeah, it is enabled on Retail Hoi 4. It is on Retail Hoi 4 since. See
what the command is.
Yeah, it's hidden if you play an MP because you can't access the console. Yeah. But it is available as long as you don't play Iron Man, because if you open the console on Iron Man, all bets are off. I have considered having like a button somewhere in the game to open it even if you're not in Iron Man. But since the UI is clearly like nothing like Hoi, then I would have to have a discussion with our UX team to see if we want to do that, and also make sure that none of this can impact your performance.
Yeah, but if you are a modder, it might be really helpful to know that you can enable this if you just go into single player.
Yeah, you can absolutely do it as long as you're not in
Iron Man.
Iron Man, yes. What about the bugs that are fundamentally RNG based or based on AI randomly deciding some things? Yes, those are difficult. Usually we catch them by having an autosave that is close to the problem, and then it just limits the options. It is difficult. The idea we try to do is that if we figure out that something is wrong, we can try to add an assertion in the game that detects that the condition is about to happen. And then at that point, we can try to just run the game several times until it traps, and then we hope to figure it out. Yeah.
So has there been any improvement to multi-threaded performance?
There has been. If you there's always improvement on multi-threaded performance. There is not everything. Like you have to realize that when Hoi was starting to be made, which was in the late 2010 or something like that.
Many moons ago.
Early 2010s actually, because we released in 2016 and the game took like 4 or 5 years, maybe 6, can't remember. Like, it's always this thing, right? Every time you start making a new game, you think about the hardware you're gonna have to work with. And at the time, I remember like 2010, people had what, like dual cores, something like that. Yeah. Maybe quad cores if you're like a bourgeois.
Yeah,
really bourgeois. Really bourgeois people had 4 CPUs. Most people had 1 or 2. So multi-threading could only get you so far. So there is some bits that over time we have changed to be able to use more threads, but some of them are like conceptually written in a way that is really hard to change to multi-thread because they were just not thought that way. Yeah. I'm thinking about the combat system, for example, because an important thing when you do multi-threading, to get quickly technical, is that you cannot predict in which order things are going to happen, because you just send work to threads, and then whoever is the less busy right now, because it's not the one that Chrome also tries to use, will get done faster. Yeah. So you can't have a dependency order of things. And the problem with combat, for example, in Hoi, is that combat has to happen in order. Like, Germany has to fight first, then I think it's England, then the Soviet Union. It has to go by tag order. This is how we solve some cases of non-deterministic fighting. So that kind of thing means that, for example, we cannot run the combats on separate threads. They have to happen one after the other. If you were to redesign combat tomorrow, we could conceptualize it in another way, and that way we would solve the problem. Yeah, it's some of those things are just too tied to the way the game works, and has been designed. So it's a thing that changes from time to time. So when we fight quick wins, we do. I did something with trade route recomputation recently. I'm not sure it's in this build, but it was a bit too slow, and this one can be used on results. 6-hour war Denmark focus. Yeah, someone said there is a new mountain in Austria. Yes, I think it was shown in the on this.
I don't actually remember if we had a little new mountain in Austria.
No, there is one here and there's one here and there's one here. I know this because there was a Pathfinder bug. There was a Pathfinder bug that if the closest way from province A to province B was through a mountain, the Pathfinder will not consider going around. He would just assume that you cannot go there. So I had to fix a bug with there. So if your units were standing like on cells, I think here, they could not cross here. They would just get stuck. If you move them once, they would realize that they could go around. It was kind of weird. We discovered that when we started testing this new mountain range that all content designers have added.
Is it possible to put an option to multi-thread the game, like each core managing different stuff like production and commerce, other managing?
No, it's not possible. It's a tech design issue that comes from the get-go. It's actually the design that CK3 went for. Like in Hoi 4 we simulate each system one by one. So like for example, if we go back to this thing, like you'll simulate the countries, then you'll simulate the states, the supply, the AI, the combat, the weather, the air, the navy, the units, etc., etc. Each one of it will be its own set, and they'll try each one of them to try to use multi-threading if they can. CK3 does it the other way around. It splits the thing by systems and then say, hey, of course, there's like 20 systems to simulate. The first one who is ready, just pick something and do it. Which makes some code design easier, and I think it's one of the reasons why CK3 is so fast. And I think one of the best of the game we have today in production. I cannot talk about the secret things, but of the games we have today live, this is probably the best one tech-wise in terms of performance and thread usage.
Why my RTX 3090 gets 20 FPS on Hoi 4? I have no idea.
Yeah, are you sure your game is using the right GPU?
Yeah.
Because
maybe using in like integrated graphics.
We had an issue in the. Remember when, you weren't there when we moved offices, right? But we moved offices and the IT team just reinstalled computer. We paid actually, I think like a moving company just moved all the computers for us. And when they plugged back the monitor, they just plugged it on the first thing they could. And a bunch of people got their really fancy RTX like monitor plugged not on the RTX but on the motherboard, like integrated Intel GPU. And like, why is the game so slow all the time?
What did they do?
So yeah, just check your plugs, make sure you plug it on the actual GPU. I am assuming you know that.
It's the more common mistake that people might understand. Maybe you accidentally move, you switch on the cables.
Do Paradox PCs have the latest GPU? Actually, we have a lab down that has like a collection of GPU from like the Ice Age to today, and also CPUs and stuff. And every time we have a new game coming up, or every time we can ask it for new releases, they'll test the game, and someone was talking about minimum requirement before. They'll test the game with like a test scenario, and they'll measure like CPU usage, GPU usage, temperature, FPS, game tick speed, etc., etc. And then from that they'll do some math and stuff to tell you like, okay, this is probably the recommended spec, and this is the minimum spec. The last time we did it was for the release of No Step Back, and hadn't been done for a while. We are considering doing it again for BBA. I want to do it because I'm curious to see if it'll change the minimum requirements for the GPUs after the UI rendering changes we have.
But actually, look at the time, we're actually right at end now. And I also want to thank you, Matthew, for joining me here on stream, talking a little bit about tech things.
Yep.
As I think people really like seeing performance improvements and how to optimize the game better. But with that, that's actually everything for today. Thank you guys for joining us for the third feature stream, and we'll actually be back next week where we will talk about Switzerland and peace conferences. But other than that, if you want to look out for other updates we might have, I'd say follow our social medias. As we actually have a dev diary, of course, on Wednesday, so take a look at that. And other than that, see you guys out.
See you!